Martin Scorsese's 2023 neo-western Killers of the Flower Moon.
Man, look, seems more like an epidemic.
Starring Leonardo DiCaprio and none other than Robert De Niro. Tells the story of murder and greed in 1920s Oklahoma, once oil is discovered on the Native American Osage Nation's tribal land. How does Martin Scorsese's latest movie hold up?
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Feel free to like and subscribe, and let's find out. So first of all, I'd say it was an immersive movie. The world it's creating in this 1920s Oklahoma, it definitely tied you in. It's typical Scorsese style in that it's like a morality tale where initially, whatever seductive lifestyle is sucking you in is attractive at the beginning, but as the duration of the movie goes through, more and more you see more of the layers of the onion peeled, so to speak, of people start to go missing, people start to get murdered, and at first you're like, well, it's just one person, it's two. Gradually, as the movie goes by, you see the evil unraveling, and it's a question of, is the protagonist going to be complicit or not?
I don't know why he didn't, I don't know why.
Not the typical Scorsese setting, but the themes and the way the movie plays out is typical Scorsese.
That oil, we should go to her sister's, your wife.
It's a 3.5-hour movie, but I would say feels quicker than The Irishman. Where The Irishman, you really feel that 3.5 hours. This, for me at the cinema, it felt like Casino or something. It felt like 2 hours and 45 minutes. We're dealing with oil on Native American soil. Aside from that, very much a classic Scorsese in a good way. In terms of Scorsese himself telling this story, it's as if he wants to tell more of a moral story than, say, Wolf of Wall Street.
That explains it then.
Explains what?
Or some of the gangster films where he's been criticized for glorifying it.
Us, those goody-good people who work shitty jobs for bum paychecks.
He is a global treasure. He probably has never done a Western. So this is him as a master filmmaker, finally at the age of 80, 79 when he filmed it, making a Western picture. Whether you want to call it neo-Western, that's fine, but a Western all the same. So in terms of Scorsese doing this feels more like a passion project to him. It feels like he was more invested than he was, say, The Irishman.
Hey, Irish.
Irishman was more layered, but this was more a better movie in terms of beginning, middle, and an end polished product.
I ain't got nothing but regret.
This morality tale, so to speak, of people want that oil, people want that easy money, then people start dying, people are being murdered for the oil, for the greed. That's textbook Scorsese themes. The difference on this one also is that, again, he's brought back Bobby D, De Niro, but De Niro in this, for me, is a return to vintage Robert De Niro.
And don't swear on your children. Makes you look foolish.
Granted, I'm going to be fair here, DiCaprio stole the show in terms of acting.
I told him the front of the head, I said the front of the head, just like this, just like you told me.
But as a De Niro fan, what I will say is, this is a return to form.
You told him to do it in the front of the head, and why did you do it in the back of the head?
In that De Niro is going back to playing these pathological personalities as he once did.
Give me the rest of the fucking bread. Lights close are tired.
Somebody who's mentally not like the rest of us. In this case, in this story, he's playing the local big man in this town who just manipulates people to murder each other.
It's so simple. The front is the front, the back is the back.
So he can retain the status quo of him being on top of this oil. If Native Americans are going to get married to white Americans, he's going to orchestrate all of that. He's puppeteering all of that.
Well, we mix these families together.
He's someone who's actually fully engulfed in the power he's amassed in this oil-rich town. And it wasn't The Irishman where De Niro has to carry it the whole way through, but you've got, at least for the beginning half, very distracting CGI, at least to some people distracting, right? In this, he doesn't have prosthetics, nothing. He's just an old guy playing an evil bastard.
You like women?
That's my weakness.
This just proves to me that if he wants to, he can still act. After 20 years of Meet the Parents, Grumpy Grandpa, Grumpy Gramps, you see to yourself, oh, you know what? Bobby D himself sold out for the paycheck, because when he wants to, the dude can still act. All these movies where he's not bothering to put on an accent and he's speaking Brooklyn Italian.
What do you want to know? You want to know if I did it or not? No.
In this, he's forced to do a kind of Southwest Texan, Oklahoma accent, right?
The way he could have.
You're like, bro, I knew if you wanted to, you could act. I mean, the dude's been in how many films the same accent? He just done a movie where he's playing a Sicilian immigrant in Chicago. He sounds Brooklyn Italian.
He's worried his immigrant father's gonna make him look like some kind of Goomba.
In terms of 2023, and you're like, oh, this guy's given up doing any accent other than his own.
The way he could have.
Then you see this movie, and he's full on acting in terms of accent and everything else. You're like, the dude never ever lost it. He just got content working for the paycheck because he keeps having all these kids, so he has more and more family to fund.
I got mouths to feed.
Of course, coming to Leonardo DiCaprio, he may be pushing 50 at this point in time, but in this movie, he just looks like a rugged guy who could easily be in his late 20s, early 30s, but just looks old and rugged because he's from a harsher time period. This is absolutely not Leonardo DiCaprio, the pretty boy from the 90s, right? He's the nephew of the big man, De Niro's character, and he's then goes on to marry the Lily Gladstone character, who's Molly, the Native American character.
That oil, which should go to her sisters, your wife.
The whole way through, you're like, is he marrying her to get a piece of that oil money? Or does he actually love her? He keeps claiming to love her, although at the beginning it's alluded to that he's a bit of a womanizer. As the movie goes on and on, it's like he'll do anything to stay in his uncle's graces. He's a bit of a dunce and he's a bit of a follower. If his uncle directs him to do evil, he'll do evil. If his uncle directs him to do good, he'll do good. But throughout the whole movie, you're like, this guy's gonna do terrible things potentially, but is he gonna sell out his wife? Is he gonna murder his own wife? That's the whole theme that keeps you on the edge of your seats. So in terms of DiCaprio, I like him in this more than I like him in a lot of stuff he's done over the past 20 years. Not everything, but a lot. I'm not saying he's better, but I like him in this more than I liked him in The Wolf of Wall Street. But the main thing with this was, it was that kind of ambiguous morality that I like the most, especially with the wife.
Did your wife say who she was most afraid of?
Now, in terms of the wife, Lily Gladstone, before the movie came out, they were talking about how it's this great performance. When he first meets her, she's this kind of feisty, sassy chick who doesn't say too many words, but when she does, she hits the nail on the head. As the movie progresses, she's more pacified as a shifting performance from a few words but sharp and direct and to the point to then totally pacified. The core nucleus of the movie is DiCaprio and Gladstone, then with De Niro.
It's supposed to be a suicide!
Not to mention all the other stars.
I was sent down from Washington, D.C. to see about these murders.
I'm not the biggest DiCaprio fan, but this is one of his best performances in my opinion. Not glamorous, but in terms of acting, in terms of a dunce who's a follower, who's directed to do evil, does he have enough good in him to pull back and not be complicit?
You gotta pick a side.
That is the core essence of the film. My overall thoughts are 3.5 hours is, at least universally speaking, a bit too long for a movie. But like I said, this movie felt like a quicker 3.5 hours than The Irishman. There's this whole thing of, should movies be made for the theaters or for streaming? Because more and more now, movies are made for streaming platforms. This movie was financed by Apple TV as well as Paramount. It did get a cinematic release, more so than The Irishman, but you know it's going straight to Apple TV. I don't even know if it's coming out on Paramount Plus. But the point is, again, Scorsese, maybe he didn't have real theatrical studios telling him, look, Martin, that's too long. But he's made a movie that I think, again, is right up his alley in terms of thematically. Not to give too much away, but the ending was vintage Scorsese paying homage to cinematic Americana. Personally, I'm thankful I got to see this thing at the cinema. Yeah, I'm always a cinema guy before streaming services. In terms of an overall rating, I'm giving it a solid 8.1. It's in the 8 territory. A good movie is undeniably a good movie. Again, if you want to compare it to his last movie, Irishman, I like Irishman more than this because it's my genre, but this is probably beginning, middle, end a better film than The Irishman. At this point in time, any movie from Martin Scorsese at this age where he's now 80 is a blessing. And of course, seeing De Niro still being able to do real acting, not just turning up for a paycheck, and putting on a different accent, massive blessing.